Hello viewers, hope you all doing well and welcome back to another vlog. And in today's vlog, I'll be flying you all from Mumbai to London. As this flight is departing from Mumbai, which is not my home base, I am currently headed to Mumbai first. In airline terminology, when flight crew travel as passengers to position themselves for another flight, it's called deadheading. We had spoken about this in one of my earlier vlogs, and it's actually a very common practice in airlines. Airlines often position crew for several reasons. Sometimes the aircraft may be operating from a different base, sometimes crew availability is limited at a particular station, and at times it is simply a part of effective crew scheduling and fleet operations. As a kid, I always used to wonder about something. Could a fully loaded commercial aircraft like a Boeing 777 actually perform a barrel roll like a fighter jet? And if something like that were ever to happen, would it be intentional? Or could it happen because of some kind of technical glitch in the aircraft system? Or is there anything else that could possibly make an aircraft behave in such an unusual way? The reality is that commercial aircraft were never designed to perform aerobatic maneuvers like fighter jets. But yes, unusual aircraft attitudes can occur, sometimes due to extreme or severe unexpected turbulence. When an aircraft is forced into an abnormal attitude because of such atmospheric disturbances, pilots refer to it as jet upset or more technically an aircraft upset. And in today's vlog, I am going to explain what a jet upset really is, what can cause it, and how pilots are trained to safely recover the aircraft when something like this happens. And with that, I have now reached Mumbai. But before we get into our today's topic, let me first head to the hotel, freshen up, and get ready for the day ahead. Come along as I walk you through a day in my life as a commercial airline pilot. As usual, Mumbai was buzzing with activity. Even though the hotel was barely 2 kilometers away from the airport, it still took us close to 20 minutes to get there. That's pretty typical for Mumbai. Traffic here has a rhythm of its own. But for us, this short drive is also a good transition time, shifting from travel mode into flight preparation mode. Even though the actual flight sector was quite short, the overall door to door journey can sometimes feel much longer. From leaving home, navigating through city traffic, completing the check in procedures at the airport, going through security checks, then flight itself, followed by collecting the bags after landing, and once again negotiating through traffic to reach the hotel, and finally checking in at the hotel. When you add all of this together, it can actually be quite tiring. That's why proper rest and recovery becomes extremely important for flight crew, especially before operating long sectors, and for that matter, even short sectors. Since tomorrow's departure is early in the morning, there were a few things to take care of first. My uniform laundry had to be done so that everything is ready and fresh for the flight. After that, I completed my prayers, and by the time I was done, my lunch had arrived. Had a late lunch, skipped my dinner, and I was off to sleep. Well, it was pretty early in the morning. My laundry was back on time, so the uniform was all set for the flight. And shortly after that, I had a wholesome breakfast served in my room. For pilots, mornings like these are quite routine, a calm start before the day's duty begins. A good breakfast, a little time to organize things, and mentally preparing for the flight ahead. And as we get ready to head to the airport, we'll continue our discussion about jet upset caused by severe unexpected turbulence and how pilots are trained to recover from it safely. But before I start explaining today's topic, take a look at this image. What you're seeing here is an aircraft that suddenly loses control and begins spinning in midair. At first glance, many people might think this happens because of bad weather or severe turbulence. But in this particular case, the aircraft upset did not happen because of weather at all. Instead, it happened because the aircraft flew into something invisible but extremely powerful. Yes, the wake vortex of another much larger aircraft. These air currents can be so strong that they can roll another aircraft uncontrollably even when the aircraft is flying thousands of feet away or several miles behind. And that is exactly what happened in this real life incident involving a Challenger 604 business jet and an Airbus A380. So let's break down what exactly happened step by step and more importantly, what pilots are trained to do under such situations. On 7th January 2017, a Bombardier Challenger 604 business jet was flying from Maldives to Abu Dhabi with 9 people on board. The aircraft was cruising normally at 35,000 feet over Arabian Sea. At the same time, an Emirates Airbus 380 was flying in the opposite direction at about 35,000 feet. So at that moment, everything looked completely normal. But here's the important part. Every aircraft creates wake turbulence, which is caused by wingtip vortices. These vortices are basically two rotating cylinders of air that spiral behind the wings as the aircraft produces lift. For large aircraft like the Airbus 380, these vortices are extremely powerful because the aircraft weighs more than 500 tons at cruise weight. Even though the A380 passed 1000 feet above, its vortices slowly descended through the air mass. Wake vortices can sink several hundred feet per minute, and sometimes they descend more than 1000 feet below the generating aircraft itself. That means the Challenger was unknowingly flying into the descending wake of the A380. As I was going through the flight documents for today's flight to London, I noticed something interesting about our routing. Our flight today takes us through one of the busiest and most congested pieces of airspace in the world, the European airspace. Unlike oceanic routes, where aircrafts are being separated by large distances, over Europe, you will often find multiple aircraft flying at different levels, sometimes just about 1000 feet above or below each other. So, when you're flying in such dense traffic conditions, there's always a possibility that an aircraft could encounter the wake of another aircraft that has passed through the same airspace just moments before. And under certain conditions, especially when the aircraft ahead is significantly heavier, the wake turbulence can be quite powerful and capable of upsetting the following aircraft. Now, getting back to our topic. About 1 minute after a 380 passed overhead, the Challenger suddenly entered the wake turbulence. The aircraft began to roll violently to the left. In fact, the aircraft rolled through multiple rotations, and during this violent motion, passengers were thrown against the ceiling. Some passengers were seriously injured. The wake turbulence was so powerful that the aircraft briefly lost controlled flight. In fact, the Challenger experienced extreme G forces, including positive 1.6 G followed by negative 3.2 G, which means the occupants momentarily experienced negative gravity. Both engines flamed out temporarily, which can happen during severe airflow disturbances. The aircraft then descended rapidly, losing roughly about 8,700 to 10,000 feet of altitude. This is exactly the kind of situation pilots refer to as aircraft upset. We have reached the airport, check-in formalities completed, and as I go through my pre-flight paperwork, let's discuss what happened further. The pilots then begin the upset recovery process, which we all practice regularly and meticulously in our simulator training sessions. Using manual control and visual cues from the horizon and clouds, they manage to stabilize the aircraft at about 25,000 feet. Once the aircraft was stabilized, One engine was restarted. Systems were gradually restored. The crew declared an emergency. They diverted the aircraft to Muscat, where they landed safely. Well, the aftermath of this incident was the aircraft experienced structural stress beyond certification limits, and the Challenger 604 was later declared as a total hull loss. This incident became a major case study in aviation training, especially for upset prevention and recovery training. Well, the most important takeaway from this incident would be even though modern aircrafts are extremely advanced, the atmosphere can still surprise us. This is why pilots train extensively to handle aircraft upset situations, whether they are caused by turbulence, wake vortices, or other unexpected aerodynamic events. And with this, we are off to London, luckily not being hit by any wake or any wingtip vortex. London was wet and windy, and the approach was quite rough with a fair bit of turbulence. But despite the challenging weather, we managed a safe and controlled landing. As I collect my bags from the tarmac, which is quite common here in London, unlike many other airports where luggage is delivered inside the terminal, let me share something fascinating. The turbulence we felt on final approach just seconds before touchdown wasn't only due to the rain and winds. It was most likely the wake turbulence left behind by the aircraft that had landed just moments ahead of us. So, in a nutshell, wake turbulence from other aircrafts can surprise you anytime and anywhere. That's why it's absolutely important to keep your seatbelts loosely fastened throughout the flight, no matter what. And remember, sometimes the turbulence you feel isn't because of bad weather at all. It could simply be caused by another aircraft flying in your vicinity. And with this, we have reached the hotel and check-in was super quick as usual. Now getting back to our topic again. Is there a way to avoid wake turbulence, especially in dense airspace like Europe where aircrafts are constantly flying above and below each other? Well, the answer is yes, there is. Even though aircrafts may be flying on the same airway, pilots don't always have to fly exactly beneath the aircraft above them. Instead, we often have the option of flying a slightly lateral offset, usually about 1 to 2 miles parallel to the road. And by doing this, we avoid flying directly beneath the path where the wake vortex from the other aircrafts are likely to descend. This small offset can significantly reduce the chances of encountering the wake turbulence of aircraft ahead. Alright, after a 10-hour flight, I have finally made it back to my room. And luckily today, we didn't get tossed around by the wake of another aircraft. Because, trust me, that would have turned this vlog into a completely different episode. My coffee stayed in the cup, the passengers stayed in their seats, and the autopilot didn't get any surprise workouts. So, I would call that a pretty good flight. In fact, the only turbulence I experienced today was while trying to open my hotel room door with the wrong key. At times during winters, the flight time can sometimes extend to more than 10 hours because of strong headwinds, which can make the journey a lot more tiring. To help manage the workload in the cockpit on such long sectors, we normally operate with 3 pilots so that the duties can be shared and proper rest can be taken during the flight. Let me give you a quick tour of my room. Quiet, cozy, and very comfortable. Just the kind of place you need after a long flight. I completed my prayers, got ready, and stepped out for a short city tour, followed by dinner. I'll be covering all of that in detail in a separate London layover vlog. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Snapchat. Well, and that's all for today, guys. If you have found my content interesting and informative, do like, share, comment, subscribe, and hype. I'll see you all in the next vlog with more interesting aviation stories and insights. Until then, stay safe, keep your seatbelts loosely fastened, and remember, not all turbulence is weather. Sometimes it's just another aircraft saying hello. God bless. Bye bye.